forever. So that 3-year-old girl, 60 years from now, can show her grandchildren who her great-grandfather was and the sacrifice that he made for this country. So I wanted to give them a gift because we were reading a resolution, and if you've heard resolutions, they're very much legalese, whereto, thereby, notwithstanding, subject, therefore, blah, 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 Latin stuff. I wanted to, really write something that showed the sacrifice, because Katie lost her soulmate, and Beverly lost her father. So I wrote a speech, and I did everything I could, every power that I had, to try to really make it meaningful for them and to touch them. Because I knew that 60 years from now, Katie Mondragon or Beverly will be watching this. And so anyway, I wrote the speech, and that morning Katie came in, we went into my back office, and I read it to her. Well, I'm Italian, I'm emotional, and it's a very touching thing. And so I couldn't get through it. I ended up welling up in tears, and I just, lip quiver the whole 9 yards. And then I just didn't think I could get through this. I said, and then something told, I don't know what it was, but I said, I gotta go see Scott Turner. I just have to go see him. And I know he's in the office across the hall. And I just went over. Now I'm walking into the office and I'm in tears. And I think he thought that I had slammed my hand on the door. And he saw me and he took my arm and said, "Hey, champ, what's wrong?" And I said, "The door, man, the door." No. But I said, I told him what had happened. And he said, "Come back into my office." And he just held my arm. And we prayed. And we prayed about it. Just for a few minutes. And he looked at me and he said, "Hey, champ, you're going to do just fine. You're going to do just fine." And I knew with 100% certainty that I was going to do just fine. So we go up to the House floor, again, big chamber, and there's a big podium. I mean, because you have to lay out bills, so the podium is one of the in fact, the biggest podium I've ever seen. It's enormous. I think there's a couple of, hobbits living inside it or something. It's enormous. So I get up, and I knew that some of the members of the Veterans Caucus were going to come up to stand behind me. So when Stickland was come up and he would rail against, runaway spending, all of us would stand behind him to show support. So I knew the veterans were going to come up and do that. So as I was getting prepared, I saw in the corner of my eye some folks coming up, some of the members to stand behind me. And I'd never been on the front mic as a freshman. And you want to talk about, because typically we speak so much, you don't really get nervous anymore, but boy, that day I was... And I really wanted to do great for the Mondragon family too. So I lay out my speech and I looked up, and every member of the House had come up to stand behind me. Oh. And all the seats were empty, which made the speech a hell of a lot easier to give. There wasn't an audience. But that day, at that moment, Enrique Mondragon, who'd never met one State House member in his life, brought Texas together, and it was beautiful. And Speaker Tom Craddock, who served in the House longer than anyone, 46 years, came up to me afterward and he said, "Pat, I've been here 46 years, and I've never seen that happen before. I've never seen every single member get up, and it was all impromptu." So that was, I think, by far the most noble thing. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you a special treat, a very good friend of mine, and somebody that I'm rather certain will do just fine. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative Scott Turner!
Thank you. What's happening? How's everyone doing? Well, thank y'all for still being here, and thank you, Pat, for that wonderful introduction, and Mike and everyone, and it's so good to see my colleagues and my friends and all of you that are here. We were really praying and hoping that we would get here, and it worked out just fine. That's all. I'm happy. And you know what? I'm not going to stand before you long tonight. And there's a lot of things that I could say and a lot of things that are on my mind. But you know what? It's a new season in Texas. And you've heard from a lot of wonderful men and women tonight that are new servant leaders in the House and in the Senate and others that are here. So can y'all give them a round of applause for what they're doing and for running and being elected? You know, there's this one song by Israel Houghton that says, it's a new season, it's a new day. And in Texas, that's where we are. There's a great changing of the guard going on in Texas right now, when we'd all agree. The people in Texas are speaking of what kind of servant leadership that they want in Texas, statewide, local, the House and the Senate. But there's a lot of things that we have to do in Texas. But I want to come tonight to encourage you, because I've been traveling all around the state, meeting with constituents, meeting with members, speaking to different groups, and I read the news, the same news that you read on a daily basis, whether it be on the internet, whether it be on TV, whether it be in a newspaper. And how many of you guys read the news and you're so fired up when you get to read the news? How many? Right? Not very many people are happy when they read the news these days. And I began to think to myself, as a servant leader, as a Christian young man, the values that I believe in, those things that bring worth and merit and salt and light to society today, those things like integrity and honor and virtue and selflessness and morality, those principles that I advocate for, the principles that you and I stand for, well, those in the progressive movement, pop culture, and those who would love to turn our state and our country into a progressive, liberal state and country, they say, well, those principles are dead. Those principles are obsolete. Those principles are archaic. They're old school. They are not applicable to today. And not only those principles, but those who believe in those and those who advocate for those principles are one and the same, a foregone conclusion, Jonathan. And you know what I say? I say the contrary. Those principles are not obsolete. Amen. Those principles are not archaic, but they are old school. How many people like old school principles of faith, freedom, and family? And you know what? Those principles transcend generations. Amen. They transcend political parties. They transcend race, tongue, creed, or culture, or gender. Those principles, oh yes, they are old school. But those are the ones that we need to stand on. And you know what? I'm not afraid. They don't talk about those type of principles anymore in politics. But politics of old, that's what's a foregone conclusion. It's a new day. It's a new season. As advocate for those principles, as believers in liberty and freedom, we absolutely bring salt and light. We absolutely bring worth and merit and value to our society and our culture today. Those that are against us would love to muzzle you, to keep you from speaking about liberty, about freedom. But I want to encourage you tonight, take the muzzle off. Keep on stepping. Put your hand to the plow and don't look back, because a new day has come in Texas. Yeah. You know, you look around, and a lot of legislators tonight have talked about the upcoming 84th legislative session and the last session that we had. And I knew very plainly and very quickly that I would not come back to the Texas House for the same old thing. With a 95-member majority in the Texas House as Republicans, we should not have to fight for or negotiate for conservative legislation like pro-life legislation. This is Texas. It shouldn't take 2 special sessions for a pro-life bill to come out of the House, to get on the floor, and to be passed. We shouldn't have to fight for or beg for a Second Amendment or campus carry legislation to come on the floor. We shouldn't have to fight for educational opportunities like school choice and others for 300,000 kids that are stuck in school districts that are underserving or underperforming for them. 95 Republicans, 55 Democrats. It should not be that way. What about business tax? Those of us that have businesses, those of us that work for businesses, nobody likes the margins tax. It's convoluted. Small business creates 75% of the economy here in Texas. We shouldn't have to fight for those. 95-member majority to 55. Should be a different story. It's a new season, y'all. It's a new day that's coming. You know what? I played 9 years in the NFL. And you know the NFL stands for not for long. And if you became complacent in the NFL, if you just stood and let the status quo take place, you lost your job. If you want transformation and true restoration and reformation in Texas and America, then the chains of complacency and the shackles of status quo have got to be destroyed. And there are men and women in this house tonight who will be representing you who do not want complacency, who do not want status quo. And I want you to know before I leave out of here tonight, I'll stand with them tonight for you, the people of Texas. There's a crisis on the border, and it's for real. I went to see it with my own eyes. It's a war zone down there. Inhumane things are being done to women and children. The drug cartels run the border. They tax everything. Things like sex trafficking, human trafficking, drugs being apprehended, tens of thousands of pounds of narcotics, marijuana, just that we apprehend coming across our border. Transnational gangs coming, affecting even North Texas. Guess what? It's the real story, and we need leaders who will stand strong for the border and for the property owners and for the security of Texas. That's what we need. The last thing I'm gonna say is this, and then I'm gonna let y'all go. 10 years ago in Washington, if you recall, we had the House, we had the Senate, and we had the presidency, the White House. And how much monumental legislation do you remember coming out of that time?
None.
Not very much. Texas is uniquely positioned right now, given the right leadership to do monumental things for the posterity of our state. And I was thinking to myself, 10 years from now, when those whom we pass the baton of leadership to, when they're standing up here talking about us and our class and what we did and the opportunities we had, may they not say that we just fumbled the ball and kicked the can down the road and did nothing with the opportunity that we had. Ronald Reagan said that freedom is only one generation away from extinction. Let us not be that generation that ushers in the extinction of freedom. But let us be the generation who fights for freedom, who advocates freedom, who lays our life down for freedom, for Texas, and for America. I read a quote one time. It said this: the external affairs of a nation will be directly affected by the condition of the hearts of its people. We got to get to the hearts of our leaders. If our leaders are not doing what the people want done, then we need to take inventory. Because the nation, the state, the affairs of our state and country are a direct effect of the hearts of the people leading us. Well, I'm encouraged tonight because we have some godly men and women who live and lead with humility, who consider the interests of others more than their own, who do the right thing even if they're the only one standing. So I'm encouraged that Texas will lead the way, because as Texas goes, so goes America. All eyes are on Texas today. So we need to set the standard for now and forevermore in Texas and America. Amen?
Amen.
Some t-shirts. Scott Turner for speaker.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're just going to quickly wrap things up. We had an online contest.